This is Hall of Famer Marshall Faulk, and you're listening to the Fantasy Footballers.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Hello, everybody. We're back. The Fantasy Footballers Podcast, yet again, dropping into your pocket.
Like a Lockett.
Thursday.
I'm doing a head bob.
You always do something physical, but the majority of people are listening to this.
That's all right. They're fools.
And then you give the subtitle to what you're doing.
They're fools. That's how you do good radio.
Last show you were twisting.
Yeah, I did.
Last
I
show
hit
you
you
said,
with
I'm doing the twist. I'm doing the twist right now. I'm like, they can't see you, Mike.
They sure can on YouTube and on the Fantasy Sports Network.
That's true.
You can't see energy, man. I'm sending it through the microphone.
I have a lot of energy right now
with this head bob.
Yeah, well, there you go. So it's Thursday, January 28th. We're back again. We're delivering the second wide receiver truth episode. That's the meat of the show today. Is we're breaking down. On Tuesday, we talked about the top 12 receivers that, based on where they finished last year, and looked at their numbers, how they perform against good Ds, bad Ds, how what was their consistency, and we're doing that today, and we're taking it from 13 through however far we get. And we're going to look at some of these names. And it's surprising sometimes to look at a name and see where they finished.
Yeah, there's one name that's downright shocking.
Well, we just talked about it, right? We'll get to
yeah,
it.
we'll get there. No spoiler alerts.
Yeah, so if you want to follow the show, you can do so on Twitter at the FF Ballers. You can obviously subscribe to the show on iTunes, and if you do that and you like the show, we always appreciate iTunes reviews. They help the show out. It's an easy way to say, hey, my team did really good this year, and I listened to you all year. But if it didn't do well, obviously don't leave a review. We're on the Fantasy Sports Network, as Jason said. We're on YouTube. You can subscribe to the channel on there. And you can visit the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. I got a quick question for you guys. Let's kick this off. Who's your way too early breakout for 2016?
Way too early breakout. So we don't know what's going to happen. All right, I got mine.
You're correct.
Mine.
We are
it's
not
way too early to know.
Fortune tellers.
I am going to
soothsayers.
I am going to fortune tell.
Sooth.
And I'm actually going to change this up.
Soothsayer.
Yeah, that's a
Wait,
thing.
you don't know that?
That's a thing, Mike.
Really?
Yep. Really.
Oh, I've never heard that.
It's a very normal, common word.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
A person's supposed to be able to foresee the future.
Pretty good.
Is a soothsayer.
All right, so here's my soothsayerness.
All right.
Like
Ajayi.
It's like the word tooth, but with an S.
Well, it's like I sooth the savage beast.
What?
All right.
What does that even mean?
Soothe?
Did either of you
never mind.
hear my
Ajayi.
Yes,
I heard you.
That's not who you have down in the
That
doc.
is not. I changed it because it's way too early. I want to, we don't know what's going to happen. I think that Lamar Miller is probably not going to stay in Miami. If he leaves, I think Ajayi is talented. He did enough to show me in limited action and, of course, in his college career that he could break out, and so he is a way too early. I mean, obviously, if Lamar Miller's back there, Ajayi is worthless.
I will say this. I like that selection more than what you had written in the doc.
There you go.
I will say this.
It feels like more of a breakout.
Whenever they have someone sign a contract for the Dolphins, I feel like there's an obligation that Will Smith is there singing the Welcome to Miami song.
I'm not sure. I've never signed a contract for the Dolphins.
I know. I'm throwing this out there. So, brass of the Miami Dolphins, if you're not having Will Smith.
Do people sign contracts with the Miami Dolphins?
They do.
Yeah,
they get paid.
Sue.
They get paid.
Got
in
100
Miami.
You
don't remember that Mike Wallace contract?
You see that they're going to try to reconfigure that contract?
What,
yeah.
the Sue one?
Yeah.
I believe you mean the Albert Hainsworth deal, which I predicted last offseason.
It wasn't like Sue was bad.
He's certainly,
but he wasn't $120 million good.
No,
he wasn't even. He wasn't even. I don't think he was top 10 in his position.
I don't know. He
It
probably
changed
was.
halfway through when they changed the defensive coordinator situation. He improved, and the team had like no sacks before the change.
Yeah.
So they certainly weren't maximizing the talent.
There's just nobody besides a quarterback in football is worth that much money.
So Jason went with a running back. Ajayi, Miami Dolphins. I like it. Mike, who's your way too early breakout?
I'm
do we
going.
have a running back from you? What do we got?
No, we do not. I'm going with a wide receiver. I'm going with Tyler Lockett.
Oh, I love Tyler Lockett.
This guy is a freak. He is super fast, a very, very talented guy. Seattle got this one very, very right. I mean, they sold basically the rest of their draft so they could move up and get Tyler Lockett where they did, and that was a genius maneuver. I talked about this on the last show that I think Seattle's going to change their offensive philosophy to be more focused on the pass. They're not going to completely abandon the run. They're not going to be the Dolphins, but they will throw a good bit more, kind of like they were towards the second half of the season. So I like Lockett to break out next year.
Yeah, I like Lockett a lot, and like you just said, that's kind of an endorsement of the offense changing, because we've said when we were looking at the Seahawks before the season, it was kind of, well, we can't really buy into wide receivers, and then all of a sudden week 9 in this season hit and something was different. And while I don't think by any means it was all Marshawn Lynch's fault when they lost in the playoffs, that was the first game Lynch was back in that run, right? Like, this offense had been functioning as this well-oiled machine, even with the Christine Michael, Bryce Brown life.
I thought it was very interesting that not to just go back to, like, I'm piling on how great Michael is, but Michael was playing well, and they get to the playoff game where Lynch is healthy. I believe Michael did not see a snap, and it's a strange thing to me to go back to a player who has not played in months in such a big game. I know it's Lynch, but when you have a guy who's playing well in your system and your team is just cruising along, dominating.
I can tell you that if I was the coach, I would go right back to Marshawn Lynch.
But would you keep Michael completely off the field?
Yep. I mean, maybe it's a mistake. I'm not saying it's right, but that would have been the decision I would have made.
It's just not even a good game to analyze that with, because it's not like they could run the ball after they were down like 30 points in 3 minutes. So, but it was a change, right? Like, there's always we were talking in Arizona about the fact Chris Johnson could come back for the Super Bowl, and you kind of go, oh, well, do you want him to if you've just made the Super Bowl?
Yeah, it's a good point.
But
speaking
he's not
of
Marshawn
Arizona,
Lynch.
Andy,
Yes.
who is your?
So my breakout, and it was a little bit hotly contested before the show when I mentioned it.
Yes.
But I think he's beyond qualified for this.
Beyond qualified.
It's Michael Floyd of the Arizona Cardinals. Look, this is a guy who had 5 100-yard games in the second half of the season. He's under contract next year. Larry Fitzgerald tailed off once Floyd was back and healthy. Floyd is the guy that I think will be the number one fantasy producer for Arizona. And his best season is, you're talking about 65 receptions. I don't think he's not a 100 reception type of guy. He is more of a big play receiver. But I think this is the year where you're going to press double-digit touchdowns with him. I think he could finish as a top 12, top 10 wide receiver next year. He's never had a season where he finished as a wide receiver 2 at the end of the fantasy year, despite playing every game. This is the time, a very high draft pick, shown it on the field. Bruce Arians came out and said, hey, he could have had a 1,500-yard year if he hadn't started the season with the finger issues. So
with his bones sticking out of his hand.
Right. Yeah, that's always a bad way to start.
Never good for a wide receiver.
Catch the ball.
So, I mean,
I don't know. He's a kind of a wimp.
So I'm going to go with
I'd have been out there.
Michael Floyd is my way too early breakout candidate. I feel pretty good about that. I don't think there's a lot that's going to change on that offense, which is another, a stability opportunity thing. So that's our breakouts. We got Tyler Lockett from Mike. I took Michael Floyd, and then Jason has Ajayi. So let's get into the news.
News and notes from around the league.
The first piece of news is that we are too old to play basketball. Breaking news. Andy and I have started playing in the mornings, and we used to do this a long time ago, and now I'm having a difficult time moving my body. So
you said after play had stopped this morning, you proceeded to sweat for an additional 50 to 60 minutes. Is that correct? That has to be good, right? Like that's like a prolonged calorie burn that just
what's
your body.
Better, I enjoyed more of the message exchange was, This was post-shower. He had showered and cooled down.
I just could not.
And he was still sweaty.
Yeah.
If you can induce seizure-like situations after a workout, that can burn more calories, from my understanding. So, yes, you're right. I'm very sore as well. But we're going to get into shape.
What other news is there?
All right.
NFL news.
Well, Marshawn Lynch, we talked about him. There's reports that he might have to pay back some of his signing bonus if he were to retire. This would lend to the idea that maybe he'd just let Seattle cut him. There's also the thought that Seattle's not going to ask for money back from a guy who's kind of put you in the Super Bowl and been a star. That's not traditional, but it could bend him towards coming back on a lower deal or something, maybe?
To me, it just says Marshawn Lynch is going to have to hold out. He's just going to have to say, I'm not showing up to camp. I'm not retiring. You will cut me.
Yeah.
Is that how he wants to go? Is that how a guy wants to go out, though? Like,
for $5 million, yeah.
Yes.
Here's what I think
I would do.
I think if he leaves, they're not going to ask for the money back. That's my guess. But we do need to remember this for the upcoming season based on what you're saying, Mike. If he's holding out, and we got to remember that there's this $5 million that's kind of possibly the reason, and not necessarily get down, on the replacements and say, well, Lynch is going to be back. He could be back. We don't know.
You mean not get down on Rawls?
Yeah, on Rawls.
Okay.
Specifically.
Yeah. I was like, are there a bunch of replacements for Lynch? Or do you piece them together?
No,
Bryce Brown.
It's Thomas Rawls.
All right, so Peyton Manning told Bill Belichick this might be his last rodeo. I think we all knew it might be his last rodeo. Yeah. I want this to be on the record, though. We made Super Bowl predictions on Tuesday, and I'm quickly changing mine. We said, okay, this is a quick question. Pick somebody for the Super Bowl. Right on the heels of the Cardinals getting a beat down. Carolina's great. Don't get me wrong. I think the game's going to be much closer than I said on Tuesday. And so I'm going on record to say that, one, I want to see Peyton Manning go out with a ring, just personal. I'd like to have him have the same amount as Eli. I think that'd be great.
Ugh.
And I'd like him to not have 3 losses in the Super Bowl. And their defense is outstanding. And
so are you switching to the Broncos victory, or just because you were
yes.
Panthers blowout? So you've gone all the way.
Yeah,
to the Broncos victory.
I'm gonna completely switch.
I don't blame you. I mean, I was the only one here that said it was going to be a really close, really low scoring game.
I'm gonna take Denver. I think it'll be a good game, though.
Yeah, I'm excited.
My pick is still the same, the Panthers. But what I want to see more than anything in the world is Peyton Manning win, and then I want to see some massive dabbing. I want to see Peyton Manning. What would that look like if he tries to throw the shade and sleep on the Carolina Panthers?
He
what
will
does
not,
that look
he'll
like?
do it wrong.
No,
that's the point.
He would never. He just immediately
you guys see
retire.
the GIF where like
both of them dancing?
Yeah, that was great.
What? There's like a Newton Manning?
and Manning.
Yes.
Yeah, Manning's on the bottom and he's white manning it up.
Is he doing the twist?
Basically doing the twist. All right. Tony Horton has reached out to Eddie Lacy and offered him help to get into shape this offseason.
Tony Horton, P90X fame, Beachbody superstar.
Yeah, Tony Horton's awesome.
He's
a hilarious
guy.
guy.
I like Tony Horton.
Yeah. So, but the real line is, if Eddie Lacy gets onto a weight loss regime, you've already had the coach come out and talk about it. If he were, is he going to be a guy that just starts getting pushed back up boards because of what we've seen before?
Maybe. Either
do
way,
they want him to be the workhorse?
I think they do, because I think that he can do it. If Eddie Lacy shows up in shape, which I actually think that he's going to do this offseason, I think this was one of those years where he realized to be a professional NFL player, you have to take it serious the entire year. And Jason is watching the GIF.
Yes, I have found it. We'll have to post this on our Twitter feed
right now.
It is excellent. I'll post it right now.
Oh man, Cam Newton's
Cam
Newton's touchdown celebration is just
Peyton Manning's dancing is the best thing.
But anyway, so if Eddie Lacy, if he shows up in shape, and I mean, he's going to be a steal, in my opinion.
The Eagles have signed Brent Celek to a 3-year, $13 million extension.
Why this is news is just because Zach Ertz just got his extension, so was Brent Celek going to be expendable? Nope, he's still on the team.
Yeah, they love Brent Celek. And he's actually more of a weapon when you have Ertz on the field, because every once in a while they'll throw him into a pass pattern, and they're not, he's still capable of doing that. So anything else you guys want to talk about before I get into the wide receivers?
There is the NFL saying they're going to investigate the HGH investigations for Peyton Manning. The only reason I bring this up is because there was investigations going on with Tom Brady last year. He won the Super Bowl. So it's looking good for your picks, Andy.
You know what this is going to be? This is going to be Ray Lewis deer antler spray or whatever, if you guys remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Where he was in the Super Bowl and allegedly he used an illegal product, and Peyton Manning's going to retire. So what are you going to do?
That would be a bad.
It is a bad move.
I'm saying
thing.
They will. He's going to retire and they'll drop it.
You think?
Yes.
Huh, there you go.
So the NFL is not going to smear Peyton Manning after he retires.
All right, let's move on to the wide receivers.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
All right, on Tuesday, we broke down the truth about the top 12 wide receivers in 2015. I'm going to recap those names for you. You can go back and listen to the show if you want all the info that we were laying down. All right, Antonio Brown was number 1. Julio Jones, Brandon Marshall. Then Allen Robinson, Odell Beckham Jr., DeAndre Hopkins, Doug Baldwin, A.J. Green, Calvin Johnson, Eric Decker, Larry Fitzgerald, and we rounded out the top 12 with Brandon Cooks.
And we should remind everyone that is standard. Those are the standard top 12 finishers.
Non-PPR.
Yeah. And so we kind of looked behind those numbers. I remember some things sticking out. One of the big things was how Allen Robinson's reception totals didn't match kind of where he was and how he played against bottom 16 defenses. He just took so much advantage of the worst teams in the league. Didn't seem to be matchup proof. But we break down each and every guy on Tuesday's show, so check that out. Number 13 on the list is somebody who before this season had been really a perennial top 5 guy, Demaryius Thomas. Now, we saw on many teams quarterback tumult that resulted in worse years. Now, Hopkins seemed to be matchup proof, but really, I mean, is it easy to say he would have been better with consistency at that position?
He just would have been better with a better quarterback.
I mean, his second half wasn't like his first half. We talked about some of the reasons. Jason broke that down. But Thomas had to go through bad Manning, okay Osweiler. Now you've got some good Manning in the playoffs, but it wasn't a normal season for Demaryius Thomas.
Well, the huge
but
difference.
He was still almost a top 12 guy.
The really big difference was touchdowns.
Yeah, that's really the main thing, right? 3
of the last 4 years, he had been a double-digit touchdown guy, and this year he finished with 6. He had 105 receptions, just over 1,300 yards, and only 6 touchdowns. So, I mean, you give him the 4 more touchdowns that you had been expecting.
He's right back.
He's right back where he should be at the top.
So the question then, as we look towards the future, is, was that basically the change of having Kubiak coming in and being that running team, running first, you get down along that goal line, not necessarily calling the pass plays to Demaryius, the fades, things like that. Is that an indication of, he should finish in the 6, 7, 8 touchdown range, or he'll bounce back and it was just a bad year with quarterback play? Because I lean more towards, if he and Emmanuel Sanders are both back, I lean more towards it being the 6, 7, 8 range going forward.
His yards, his average yards per catch were down, and I think that's indicative of the system as well. He had the lowest total yards in 4 years. He had the lowest touchdowns in 4 years.
Oh, because Denver had just been – their offense was out of control the last few years.
So
there's really been a change of method and of the desire of what they want that team to be with Kubiak coming in. They want to play better defense, slow the game down. It's just not great for fantasy numbers. So I expect this to be more of the trend.
The baseline. And now he was better against bottom 16 defenses. He put up 16 a game against them versus 11 against the top 16 defenses. And
the entire reason, touchdowns.
Yep.
You're looking at end-of-season rankings. He just wasn't scoring on top-half defenses. I lean towards the bounce-back candidate. I think Demaryius Thomas is a guy who can, similar to a Des Bryant, where he's built for a 10-touchdown season. It just didn't work out this year. The question of the quarterback is huge next year. Denver, look, Peyton Manning, I think he's going to retire. Brock Osweiler's a free agent. So they have to make the decision, is Brock Osweiler the quarterback of the future? Because you're going to have to pay him to keep him around because he's going to shop his services. Or do you have to find a new quarterback? Do you find a stopgap veteran somewhere?
So I guess, a lot of questions that need to be answered. But as of right now, if Demaryius Thomas was your excuse me, if he was your number one wide receiver, would you be comfortable next year, you think?
Yes, I would.
On your fantasy team?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would.
All right. Number 14. Look, he's only Eric Decker was number 10, and that's a wide receiver 2 on his team. Number 14 is his counterpart, Allen Hurns.
Yeah.
These guys were surprises to some. Mike was really on the Decker train, but I don't know if you expected a top 10 performance from Eric Decker.
No, not top 10, but I thought he would be a 2. But 10 was just, whew.
Now, Hurns battled some injuries this year, played hurt a little bit, missed a game. Jason, what do you see from Allen Hurns moving forward? He was 14 in this list. He was 16th in terms of consistency with 8 top 25 performances, 3 top 5s, and 4 that were outside of the wide receiver 4 range.
His consistency is what I really liked. And when you're looking at, in next year's draft, when you're looking at a second wide receiver, obviously I don't see Allen Hurns as the type of guy that's ever going to, go into that tip-top player. But what you liked, so we talked last time on Tuesday, Allen Robinson had such a disparity between the top defenses and the bottom defenses, one of the biggest of every wide receiver out there. Allen Hurns was very consistent in that against the top defenses or the bottom defenses, he pretty much put up near the same amount of points per game. The way that Blake Bortles used him, wasn't dependent. Because he was the number 2, he didn't really change from week to week as far as game plan. He used him consistently the same way, went to him a lot on third downs, which you like to see. He's super young. So I feel like Allen Hurns is a guy you can rely on a little bit for next year. And when it comes to playing through injuries, similar to Decker, he's a tough guy. He's not a guy that's going to allow being banged up to take him out of being productive. So, number 14, I think that's a little higher than I would project him to be next year because I don't expect him to have 10 touchdowns. But he's a guy that you can rely on, and more so than I think the guys that are going to go in his ADP range.
My concern for Allen Hurns, I have it written down. I got to get back to my thing. He had plus 7 targets. Okay, so he had 7 more targets. He had 7 more catches.
Then what?
Last year. Sorry, yeah, thank you. So
Gotcha.
this is than last year. 7 more targets, had 7 extra catches, 350 yards, and 4 touchdowns more than last year. So while I agree with Jason, I like Allen Hurns moving forward. I like the way the offense is. Hopefully Bortles can continue to evolve as a pro quarterback. And though I imagine there's still going to be some delicious garbage time from Jacksonville next year, but you got to be careful. Do not overdraft Allen Hurns with that kind of improvement on 7 targets. You got to be careful for regression.
Well, you also have to keep in mind that the offense really changed. They brought in Greg Olsen, Blake Bortles.
They brought in
Greg Olsen, the offensive coordinator. Yes, not the tight end, the offensive coordinator.
Well, I thought you were going Julius Thomas direction for a second,
no.
so I was like, wait, you got the wrong guy.
But they are opening up the offense more for Blake Bortles. So the yards per pass, what he's
Bortles,
actually
1,500 more yards than last year, 35 touchdowns to 11. Okay, so you can continue, but my point was just the disparity might not go away.
Right. It's possible for a regression. I definitely would not. Here's what I would not do. I would not project for this is now the next year. Blake Bortles is in his 3rd year. Allen Robinson, and everybody's going to go up and project them higher than this year.
Right.
But I don't necessarily see regression here.
I think the way that we broke down Robinson, I think Robinson comes down a little bit.
Yes.
Or other guys are going to surpass him. There's names behind Hurns on this list that I would take ahead of Allen Hurns next year. That being said, I do think he'll be a 2. I think it will be a wide receiver 2 in fantasy from because his consistency levels, you've got the stability of that offense in the same way that you have with New York. They're committed to Bortles.
Mm-hmm.
The head coach is coming back, despite Jason's protestations. So let's move on to the next guy here. Jarvis Landry played 16 games, had 165 targets, 110 receptions, over 1,100 yards, only 4 touchdowns through the air. But this is a guy who, though he finished 15th, he was the 11th most consistent. He didn't really give you a lot of boom games. He gave you one, really. That was a top 5 performance. But Landry's somebody who, if you stole him as your wide receiver 2, he probably did really well in your league, especially in PPR leagues.
Yes, that was going to be my point. Is when you're talking PPR, it's a completely different thing for Jarvis Landry. But the 165 targets for Landry, I'm not sure that will repeat itself. You have a completely new coaching staff. I like Adam Gase, so it's possible he could do that, but I would look for those targets to come down, which means that Jarvis Landry's just overall, all of his numbers, all of his stats will come down because because of who he is as a receiver, a possession guy.
Matt Harmon, good friend of the show here, the author of Reception Perception, put out an article recently talking about. Which was surprising, I think, to what our normal thoughts were on offenses that basically struggled when their leading receiver was out of the slot. We think about the New England and those types that succeed, but what we forget there is that Edelman wasn't actually in the slot the majority of the time.
He played outside a lot.
He did.
Yeah.
And so with a new offensive coordinator, with a whole new coaching staff coming in, I agree with you that it's a little worrisome you've got Devontae Parker there that looked like he can be what they drafted him to be. So for Jarvis Landry, he could become the second wide receiver on the team as he should be working out of the slot, in which case, is he going to get another 110 receptions or is it going to be 90, 100 and, numbers come down a little bit?
Absolutely. I think that's a really good take. I think Landry's somebody who, over the second half of the season, you can see he alternated double-digit and single-digit games in half-point PPR. He wasn't as consistent as the first half of the season. Now you throw some question marks into the mix. I don't think he's going to fall to the point of being a great value. So I think that's a good take. I think Parker's got to be the lead dog there for that offense to succeed, and they need to be more consistent running the ball. And they ran through the air, to use a Jason phrase, with Landry very often.
Yeah,
and they force-fed him a lot. So, did you have a final thought on him?
The only other thought I have is that I'm not sold on Tannehill as a quarterback, and I feel like Tannehill is laser locked onto Landry, and I don't know if a coaching staff can change that. That's my only thought. They should, right? They should be going to Devontae Parker, but will they be able to with Tannehill?
All right, at number 16, we have a guy that I would draft over Landry, Hurns, that I would draft over.
He's going to be so
Brandon
high for
Cooks,
me next year.
And that's Sammy Watkins, because here's a guy with margin, and here's what I mean. He had a season, he finished 16th in fantasy, he only played 13 games, 95 targets, 60 receptions, over 1,000 yards, and 9 touchdowns. He ended up as the 12th most consistent wide receiver, but man, does he have margin to me. He is built and was drafted as and has the talent to be better than these numbers.
Sammy Watkins was going to be my breakout player in that way too early breakout. The problem is he's already 16th, but it's very similar to DeAndre Hopkins last year. DeAndre Hopkins was a wide receiver 2 last year, but he broke out this year. Sammy Watkins should be an absolute top wide receiver for many years of his career in the NFL. Sammy Watkins, you saw once he was healthy. I mean, he missed some games with injury. You should have a little bit more consistency now. I mean, they didn't have Tyrod Taylor as the quarterback in the early. I mean, you didn't even know he was going to be the quarterback.
So I have a question for you, because you made a great point on Tuesday about DeAndre Hopkins and the change of that defense from the midway. Houston's defense was terrible. Hopkins' numbers were through the roof. Look, we know what
I know where this is going.
Well, my point is that Rex wants to be Houston from the second half of the year. That's what he wants to be.
That's not what his hiring has done.
What do you mean? Oh, Rob Ryan?
His brother?
Well, okay, but they still have his brother is what, an assistant?
Yes.
He's not the D coordinator.
Okay.
My point is not that they will succeed with the goal. it's very much a possibility. Rex Ryan has led many great defensive teams. There were some problems with Mario Williams, and that defense struggled. I don't know if Watkins will get the opportunity to be what he can be if that defense is shutting people down. If that defense is performing well, I can't help but think Watkins would be in the boat that you painted for Hopkins.
Sure. I see that. I do love Mike's point about Rob Ryan. Has Rob Ryan ever led a successful
Of course,
defense?
yes, he has.
Because I just don't.
I don't remember when.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So he was at Dallas before. Right?
I think
the Saints were great with him.
Actually, you know what happens
The
with
Saints
him?
were great
And this is
with
something I believe when he changes teams, they do have a good first year, and then they regress, because before the Saints,
Dallas.
he was with
before the
Dallas,
Saints.
and when he came, they had a good first year, and then they fell off the map.
His tenure is not long in these places, but he was. They were like a top 5 defense in New Orleans.
Okay.
But then obviously not last year. But let's not focus on Rob Ryan, because that's not the.
All right, so
they
to
want to be
Sammy.
a defensive
Sure.
team. Rex Ryan is a defensive coach, and they've succeeded before.
Yeah, I still love Sammy Watkins. I think that the talent level is there. And between weeks 8 and 16, he was the number 6 wide receiver. He was ahead of Brandon Cooks, Julio Jones, A.J. Green, DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Megatron Johnson. He was finishing. He was ranked higher than these guys.
Which weeks?
Weeks 8 to 16. So the
8 to 16.
the second half of the fantasy season. So he was a beast. And that was because of Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod is good. They have a quarterback. They've got it figured out, despite their whoever said that was like the GM. Someone said, well, Tyrod's going to have to go out there and show it.
Yeah, he's got to prove it.
Yeah, well, pretty sure we saw it. I mean, you had a good quarterback there for the first time in years. So I like Watkins. I mean, over the course of an entire half of football, he was dominant.
Yeah, it's a good point. They gave up a lot of points over the second half of the season, so I'll be curious to see. I'm not trying to throw a bunch of shade on him. He's a hyper top 12 talent for sure. I will take a guy just like him on a better offense.
Oh yeah, I mean,
would you take Jordy Nelson coming back in Green Bay over Sammy Watkins?
That's
Oh,
tough,
man.
That's a great one. I think that I would. Jordy Nelson.
We're talking redraft, of course, right?
Yeah, it would have to be. If it was any kind of keeper, or obviously
Or dynasty, yeah,
then,
of
then
course.
Watkins is
Okay.
has
Just
the youth on his
clarifying.
side.
But man, right now I might take Watkins.
Okay. I this next guy on my list, I have a little flashback for you guys, if you can bear with me.
Nothing you can say can tear me away from my guy.
I also find that drop to be just hilarious because it's such a disparity. Hardcore and the my guy. But my guy is number 17.
The dirty cake.
The dirty cake himself, Jeremy Maclin. 15 games, 124 targets, 87 receptions, and wouldn't you believe it? Over 1,000 yards receiving.
1,088. Barely over.
Oh, okay.
Barely over 1,000.
Well, he
yards.
had 8 touchdowns. He was the 13th most consistent receiver. He wasn't a guy that blew up very often, but he was the first wide receiver read and a very reliable one for Alex Smith. He was somebody who we were fearful in the playoffs, had destroyed his career again, but didn't. And so projecting forward Jeremy Maclin, one thing that's surprising about him is that he performed a lot better against tough defenses. He was matchup proof, you'd say. He had 16 points a game against top 16 defenses as opposed to 10 against bottom 16, and we all know why that is, because when they crushed people, they just ran the ball.
Yep.
Yeah,
so project him forward. I mean,
Projecting him forward, I see him as a higher end wide receiver too, because you've got a guy that's reliable. You want, generally speaking, the number 1 on the team, and he is. But it goes back to that defense. The Kansas City defense is too good for Jeremy Maclin to be able to have fantasy production that's going to win you weeks by himself on any kind of consistent basis. So happy with him as a high-end wide receiver 2 next year.
I pretty much agree with that take and where I would project him to be. I'd love to have him as my 2.
Yeah, he's still probably going to be a tougher guy for me to draft because I'm looking at a lot of these names underneath him, and I would like them on my team more than Maclin.
Not me.
Yeah,
That's very interesting because the guys on the list after him, a lot of them are 2s as opposed to a 1. Maclin's the 1.
Yeah, I understand that. There's just is a.
You see, he's the number 1 receiver on a football team.
I got that part of it. It just is.
He's on an Alex Smith team.
Yeah, that's what the problem is. It's Alex Smith.
All right, so I'll be curious. We're going to ask you the question as we go through these next 5 names of would you take him over Jeremy Maclin?
And when I say there's some guys on the list that I want more, it's not that I'm saying I'm throwing massive shade on Maclin saying he's bad and will be useless for fantasy. Just I know where he's going to be drafted, or making an assumption of where he's going to be drafted.
Well,
and
what
me paying that price, I'm not
what
sure.
I took you to mean when you said looking at the guys below him, I took that to mean if those 2 guys were on the board, it's whatever round, 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, wherever, Jeremy Maclin and let's say this next guy, Emmanuel Sanders, they're both on the board. They're the only 2 wide receivers out there. Who you take?
Yeah, that's how
I'm
take
taking Sanders there.
Okay. So let's talk about Sanders. 15 games, 137 targets. He was somebody that was hyped up a lot before the season. He didn't really let you down in a, bust type of capacity, but he certainly didn't give you and couldn't have given you another year of career highs.
No.
Because generally you don't see that year after year.
One of the crazy things for me with him, Emmanuel Sanders has been a PPR monster over the last few years. That's what I've really loved about him. And the targets I felt like were still pretty there to get up somewhere near that 100 catch range. But he only finished with 76 receptions. I think there were 4 less targets than the year before and 25 less receptions. That's just weird. Is that quarterback play? Is that all it is?
That's Manning.
And if it is, then you have to say that's not better next year.
Depending on who the quarterback is, you mean?
Well, I mean, in what situation is it going to be better? If they bring in someone new, it's not going to be better. If Peyton Manning's back, is he going to be better a year older? And if Brock is there, is that better than what? I mean, I guess that's maybe he could prove to become better if Brock is back for a whole year. That's the only situation.
He really didn't put up big reception numbers with Brock, and it's a good point. He had 25 less receptions this year, 3 less touchdowns. This is kind of where I see him.
In this 18 range?
In his totals. I don't know if that'll break down to 18, 19, 15, whatever. But these type of numbers seem very repeatable to me. 6 touchdowns from a guy his size makes sense to me. 75 receptions, a big role in the offense, a guy who makes big plays, but isn't a wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I wouldn't draft him as a 1, but if Brock Osweiler is back, I think that he can slightly improve I feel like the touchdowns can go up.
Well, you must because you'd take him over Jeremy Maclin.
Man,
yeah.
It's crazy to look at when you compare Jeremy Maclin and Emmanuel Sanders. Emmanuel Sanders, he had 13 more targets than Jeremy Maclin and 11 less receptions. And Emmanuel Sanders has very good hands.
I love the player.
Yeah.
But trending wise, I mean, Jason makes a good point. It's not. I don't think it's going to be better. It's easy. I mean, you can say, okay, if Brock's back and they all figure it out, but it's hard for me to make that kind of a leap when I'm drafting somebody.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. So maybe after this discussion, I would go back to Maclin over Sanders.
All right. Well, how about this next guy, number 19? I'm gonna go from my guy to not my guy here. I was dead wrong on Michael Crabtree, who really impressed me on the field and in fantasy. 16 games, 9 touchdowns, didn't quite get to 1,000 yards, but was really a valuable fantasy receiver. He had some inconsistency, definitely towards the second half of the year. So I'm not excited about him for next year. But when you play 16 games and you put up 85 receptions, PPR leagues, an offense that seems to be getting better with a young quarterback, there's a lot to like about him at the right value.
Yeah, I like it. He just got paid. He's finally healthy. He's on a team with a growing quarterback in Derek Carr, who's getting. We saw a.
Yeah, he's almost 7 foot now.
Yeah, it's like the Jolly Green Giant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he must be eating.
He'll be 8 foot by the time next season starts.
If he keeps up with the green beans and the broccoli,
right.
he'll get there for
That's
sure.
what my mom told me.
I like Crabtree moving into next year. I think that he can actually improve upon these numbers. The yardage, maybe the touchdowns. He had 9 touchdowns. That's tied his career high. That's probably going to be right around the same range, plus or minus a couple. But I think the yardage can definitely go up with the improvement of Amari Cooper as well. I think that the way that team is built, and with Latavius Murray being a capable threat out of the backfield, I like Crabtree moving forward to finish again as a wide receiver too.
He was somebody who 3 times did not finish as even a wide receiver 4 this year. He had 1 top 5 performance. He was 31st in consistency. It's an interesting discussion. We talked about Brandon Marshall and Decker yesterday and how you can't really, you can't overcover Marshall because Decker will eat you alive, right? Because his talent level's up there. This is kind of like, I think, on both sides, Crabtree and Cooper, kind of like Junior, right? Like Marshall Jr.
That's fair.
Decker Jr., where some of that, you see the consistency against the top 16 and bottom 16 defenses, about the same amount of points per game, which is what you saw from Hurns. The second receiver just kind of gets his targets.
Yeah, he's going to do what he does regardless of the matchup. And the problem with me is I just don't think Michael Crabtree does enough. Because while maybe the yards per catch can go up, that is actually kind of his role. He is much more of the possession type.
And they're not going to expand that with Cooper ascending.
And generally, that role doesn't find 9 touchdowns. So for me, I like Cooper, but he gives me Crabtree. He's okay. I would not probably draft him to finish even where he did this year personally.
No, I would not finish. I don't think he's going to finish.
Gives me a little bit of hope for Victor Cruz. Just from, Crabtree sucked for a long time coming off of more serious
injury.
But it was a serious injury in the legs that kind of took years to come back from. Victor Cruz having been out this whole year, maybe he can come back and be relevant.
So it's so interesting when these names, formerly fantasy superstar Victor Cruz. Wait, who is that again? It's like he's gone. All right, so number 20 is a name. If I could consult a soothsayer, Mike.
Sure.
I'd love to know what in the world is in store for Jordan Matthews. Because Jordan Matthews finished 20th somehow, but that is well below projections for him.
Absolutely.
He was somebody who people thought was a bona fide Chip Kelly. Look, the discussion all offseason was, he always produces a wide receiver 1, except for the year he gets fired.
Yeah, and Jordan Matthews, he was in consideration for my breakout or way too early breakout. I still like the player Jordan Matthews. I think there is a lot of talent there. And there's already talk of moving him to the outside, which is where I thought he should have been. This whole slot versus outsider or outside receiver, he's 6'3".
Yeah, and I don't believe there was a player in the league over a certain amount of receptions that played in a higher percentage in the slot. It was like 96.3. He was a slot guy. So moving him to the outside definitely can be better. He had some serious hands issues this year.
That was my next point too.
Well, so you're saying that they could just go away?
Not necessarily that they're going to go away, but I think that he just after it was week 1. He had that huge drop, and you have to factor in the humanity of it. I think it really, really got in his head, and which allowed another one to happen. So it just was this downward spiral. Gets a fresh reset off season, new coaching staff, a chance to start.
Frank Reich and Peterson, yeah,
brand new, and I still believe in Jordan Matthews, the talent.
Yeah.
So Oh, sorry.
Looking at his game log and seeing how his numbers came about. Now, we know from the fact that he did win the footy for this, right? The garbage man of the year award. So having won the garbage man, we know a lot of it came in that time, but after his week 8 bye, he was much better the rest of the year. Much, much better. The beginning part of the year from weeks 3 through 7, he never once finished with double digits. So
Nelson Aguilar, does he get more involved next year in the West Coast scheme and take away from Matthews, or is he a better fantasy value than Matthews?
I don't think Nelson Aguilar is a good wide receiver.
That's ridiculous.
Whoa.
That's ridiculous.
Oh, that's a hot take.
I just don't think he's that
good. You haven't seen anything. This is a Devonta Freeman alert.
Well, it could.
Let me hear it.
No,
Nelson Aguilar.
No, I'm not going to say he stinks.
Good, because he doesn't. He's a great player. I think he's a very good player.
So you expect big things from him next year?
I expect Nelson Aguilar to be a better draft value than Jordan Matthews.
Oh,
really?
There's no way to put that on the board, but absolutely I do.
Well, the way let's break that down just a little bit. Matthews is going to plummet, right?
Why would he plummet?
Compared to where he was drafted last year.
Oh, draft-wise, yeah.
Yeah, I think he'll be a 6th, 7th round pick around there, would you guess? Or would he go higher? I mean, he did finish 20.
He'll probably go higher.
Yeah.
Because he's the one on that team. The perception, right? Your ones go earlier. But
Aguilar
where's Aguilar going to go?
Aguilar had so many opportunities this year. He played
that. I disagree completely. I could not more vehemently disagree with you.
How
did he have a million opportunities this year?
He played the whole year as on the outside.
No, he did not. He did not play the whole year on the outside. When a guy has 23 receptions on a season, I don't think he got a lot of opportunity to play.
Okay, so we agree at least on one thing. He had 23 receptions. What I'm saying is he had
40 targets.
Is that
44 targets.
He was in the game enough to have nowhere near those numbers, playing snaps, those type of things, and that's where I'm saying he wasn't getting the separation, he wasn't performing. I mean, I just think for the amount of time he was on the field, he should have had better numbers.
I do not doubt that he had a disappointing year. There's not me disagreeing with you that. He does play enough snaps to have done more. For some reason, my point is this. He just didn't seem to be like a part of what the offense was trying to do. If you play that much and you get 44 targets, I mean, you can blame the wide receiver, you can blame Sam Bradford, you can blame Chip Kelly, you can blame the routes he's running. I think he's a better fit for West Coast. I think that's what you're going to see with Doug Peterson. And so I think his numbers and the potential for him to be a Hurns-like guy are very high. He's a top draft pick.
What about a Maclin?
I loved him in USC.
A Maclin type guy, because he's getting the Kansas City offensive coordinator.
No, not a Maclin type guy, because he's not going to be in that Maclin type role. He's going to be in a role like I think him and Crabtree could have very comparable numbers next year.
Crabtree or Matthews?
I'm saying Aguilar. I think Aguilar could be in the. I just think he has the ability and talent. I liked him in college. He didn't get opportunities last year with whatever involvement problems he had. He had a bad year, no doubt about it. Bad year. He's not the only one on that team. Jordan Matthews had a bad year. DeMarco Murray had a bad year.
85 for 997 and 8 touchdowns. I wouldn't call it bad year.
I think if you watched him, he was as up and down and terrible as you could be.
Just saying
his
final stats.
Yeah, but anybody could do that as the one on any team.
Not anybody.
What do you mean not anybody?
If
you're the one on any team, you're going to put up 1,000 yards, and he didn't even get there. You don't think so? I mean, look at it. Find the last team other than Kansas City's historical situation, they were breaking the records for the 1,000 yards. Dwayne Bowe, how good is Dwayne Bowe?
That was a completely different offense. But who did anyone on the Panthers have over 1,000 yards? Who was the number one receiver on the Panthers?
I don't know.
Okay, just saying that.
No, I don't think anybody there had 1,000 yards.
What about?
I'm saying it's pretty easy to do. That's all I'm saying. I don't know how many receivers per year do it, but it's not that hard to do. And he's the number one target. And how much garbage time poured into his statistics. That team was down by a ton. He didn't do a lot of meaningful things on the field, Matthews. Would you agree with me? Other than dropping the football?
How many drops did he actually have? If you're talking about drops so much.
He talks about drops so much.
Well,
Philadelphia media talks about drops.
I'm not
so much.
disagreeing. He was dropping the ball a lot, but
I think he led the league.
Number one wide receivers, I don't think are guaranteed to have 1,000 yards. I mean,
yeah, I agree
Green
with
Bay.
that statement.
Green Bay did not have 1,000-yard receiver.
They didn't have a leading receiver. They rotated that position throughout the year.
Okay.
So
Not every team has a number one then.
if you give a guy a number one in 16 games, I think it's pretty easy. What is that average? 60 yards for their leading receiver?
Well, Nelson Aguilar is not going to be a clear-cut number one next year.
He's not the number one at all.
I know.
I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about Jordan Matthews. That's what we've been talking about, Jordan Matthews.
I'm just saying that.
We were just talking about his numbers.
I'm just saying that I don't think
The Eagles led the league in drops.
I don't think you're accurate in saying that the number one wide receiver for a team, commonly gets it's easy to get 1,000.
And we'll disagree.
All right.
I think it's very easy.
We'll have to investigate this afterwards.
So percentage wise, what does that statement mean? The number one, if you start the year as the number one receiver, how often do you finish with 1,000? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying if you take the league and you look at the 32 teams, we'll have to look and see how many teams didn't have 1,000-yard receiver. And
this is an interesting case study. And I'm looking at drops here. Number one, most drops in the league for wide receiver.
Amari Cooper.
Yeah. Mike Evans, Demaryius Thomas, Brandon Marshall, Martavis, Devontae Stinky Adams, Nasty Nate Washington. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys who had more drops than Matthews.
Well, I think the reason
Matthews he never dropped the over the top by 4 touchdowns.
He had high profile.
He had high profile drops.
Well, he's come out repeatedly. This is not like a mirage. He's come out repeatedly this year. It's horribly embarrassing about his drops. That's his own words. Yeah. It's been something we've seen and gone, what?
He did have more drops than Leonard Hankerson, though,
which is impressive. Because Leonard Hankerson.
See, that you're getting into the discussion of drops per target. That's really the number that matters. It's not total drops that matters. It's kind of like the number that matters is how often you're being targeted. Cooper was targeted a lot.
Cooper had 3 more targets
than
Jordan Matthews.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
And a lot more drops.
Yep.
Amari Cooper stinks.
All right, let's talk about John Brown, next guy on the list. Getting here close to home in Arizona, you've got the 3-headed wide receiver monster in Larry Fitzgerald, John Brown, and Michael Floyd. This year, John Brown had, over 100
Get choked up about John Brown?
Finished with 1,000 yards, right, Andy? 7 touchdowns, 65 receptions. As far as how he did against the top half and the bottom half, he did a little bit better, performed a little better against the bottom half of passing defenses, about 2 points per game better, not a monstrous difference. And he had 7 times where he was in the top 25, 3 times where he was not a wide receiver 4. Kind of had, in my view, an up and down season that didn't allow you to bank on playing him.
Yeah, that's fair. He was kind of a pretty consistent touchdown guy, though. So coming down the stretch, John Brown, after his he got hurt, and then he had the game with the 0, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, he was great down the stretch, and he was actually very, very, very good for the majority of the year. He just has those couple games of the 0 with the injury problem, and there was also a shift in the offense once Michael Floyd got his hand put back together. But as far as moving forward to next year, I think John Brown he might become a value.
John Brown's an interesting guy.
That's what I'm saying. Like he might be. He's
7 touchdowns.
He's too early to call, but
1,000 yards.
It depends on what will happen with the Michael Floyd hype over the offseason.
There's a lot of Deshaun Jackson similarities in these stat lines. Not necessarily in the up and down. He's a little more consistent, but 1,000 yards on only 65 receptions.
Yeah, he's a big play
and
guy.
7 touchdowns.
What I liked about John Brown, though, is 2 less targets, but 17 more receptions and 2 more touchdowns. So it just
Then who?
Then himself.
Oh, okay.
Sorry,
context.
Yes,
context.
I apologize. So from last year, from his rookie year.
Sure.
So it wasn't an inflation of where you have to pump the brakes completely and say, well, this is going to regress massively next year. It just showed a nice, steady improvement in the receiver.
I agree. So let's talk about T.Y. Hilton, somebody who still managed to finish in the top 24 despite the Andrew Luck situation. So projecting him forward, what I want to know is he going to be a draft value because of the numbers put up, or is he going to be overhyped because of Luck returning? Where does Hilton belong in the discussion? Because obviously not the normal Hilton type of year. He got paid. He's great, in my opinion. Like, I think the talent-wise and who he is great, but will Luck and him put it back together for a top 12 finish next year?
Yeah, I think they will. The question is going to be whether or not
For top 12?
I think he's going to be right around that 12. Whether he finishes as the best wide receiver 2 or, the worst wide receiver 1, that's where I expect him to finish around. And I actually do think he has the talent and opportunity to be able to get up near that top 5, should the chips fall right next year with the Colts.
He's just never been a touchdown guy. That's
Right.
been the problem. He's had these seasons, last year 7 touchdowns. I think he had one game with 3. So he puts up big yardage numbers, over 1,300 yards. You didn't see a regression in yards per catch this year. You just kind of saw a regression in total receptions, despite the fact targets were up. So that says quarterback play.
Yeah, and the truth is right now, this is absurdly early to look at average draft positions. But right now,
No, it's not.
That's what we should title all February, March, and April shows.
Yeah.
The absurdly early season.
No.
But right now, he is going as the 23rd wide receiver. And so if that stays, if he stays around that range and he
I can
goes as the
dig it.
18th, 19th,
I'll
20th,
be all over that.
I'm going. Yeah, I will jump on that and love that. You know who's going ahead of him right now? Josh Gordon.
I would draft Josh Gordon ahead of him.
Would you? Yeah.
Yeah, I would.
Josh Gordon is going to be a fun one. He was
Do you remember Josh Gordon?
Yeah. Well, I was going to have him be my breakout, but then he's already clearly
Oh,
broken
yeah, he was
out.
the number 1 receiver.
But right.
That's a pretty good breakout.
But as far as like coming,
he didn't do anything this year.
well, yeah, he didn't do anything. So
Comeback player
the
of the year.
comeback player. So I didn't use him.
He's not even reinstated yet, though.
He has submitted a petition. They had 60 days to respond. So
I
we'll
think
find out.
he'll be back.
I am in the Josh Gordon camp, right?
Well, you've always loved Josh Gordon.
Well, there are certain players. Look, we all get reads on people. Johnny Manziel, you have trouble. You get a read on it. The guy doesn't get it. I mean, that's the truth. He doesn't get it. Josh Gordon seems to get it to me. That's my perception. I'm one human being.
Which part of his multiple suspensions tells you he gets it?
None of that. It's not in the amount of his suspensions. It's in the player when you see him on an interview and you hear him talk about it. He wrote on, he wrote an article afterwards himself about the suspension and about the situation, and it came across like somebody who gave a crap.
Yeah, and he was
And
so
I could be
young.
proven wrong very easily with another suspension. But I'm gonna say I'm on his side. I'm on his side. I'd take him over Sammy Watkins.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah, so there you go.
All right.
So let's talk about the last two. Everybody knows their names. They're the most obvious fantasy wide receivers that we all predicted going into the season, and that's James Jones and Tavon Austin.
Tavon Austin is that name that we spoke about in the beginning of the show that is mind-blowing to me that he is.
Look, step one is to play 16 games for these lists. It
Check.
really is.
He did it.
Running back
He
lists
made it.
look the same. But James Jones, let's talk about him first because he had 100 targets in a season where his career we thought was done.
Yeah, it was a nutty and great time for James Jones.
A what?
A nutty and great time for James Jones. Bad time for the Packers. Comes in. Here's the truth. Going forward, I think we can't project James Jones to be much of anything, even if he's back with the Packers.
He's probably not even a Packer.
No, I know.
No,
but he's probably not a Packer.
They like him in the locker room, though.
Yeah,
He could be back as a 3. Like he's. Let's all be honest.
He can be the
He's
event
a great
coordinator.
3.
He throws a great party.
Yeah, locker room
Slip and
speeches.
slides.
He is the example of a guy I won't draft.
Name a better receiver from Green Bay this year. You can't.
A more
There was nobody more productive than James Jones.
That's the truth.
He was the go-to guy. I mean, it's not like Devontae Adams did it. Richard Rodgers didn't do it. Randall Cobb didn't do it. Randall Cobb is where? Where did he finish? 28th?
Here's the
Jason's
issue
sitting
with,
back
with
in
James
his seat
Jones.
because he's going, how did Randall Cobb fall
No,
this
you know,
far?
the truth is that really upset me what you just said because I thought about it and I really wanted to argue it, but there's no argument. He was the best wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers for sure, and that is disgusting. He was cut from 2 other teams. What was going on, wide receivers? Come on. Come on, Jordy.
The first 7 games, James Jones was scoring about 14.5 a game. The last 9, under 7.
But here's the weird thing. He had these numbers, finished where he did, 5 games, 0 or 1 reception. 5.
Yeah.
I mean, this was somebody who surprised everybody to start the year, but then he had a negative point game. He had a 0. He had another gooser. He had another 1-catch game in the second half. But he's done. And he's probably done.
Irrelevant for next year. I believe that, if Jordy's back and Randall Cobb is there, even if James Jones comes back and he's that third guy on, we saw him do well years before, but I wouldn't draft him with the last pick in my draft.
All right, so Tavon Austin, another guy who had multiple 1-reception games, but got the ball in the running game consistently. Look, he had 6 rushing attempts, I believe, in week. Let's see here.
Man, Tavon.
6 rushing attempts in week 17. The weeks before, 3, 4, 4, 2, 4, 1, 3, 8, 3. He gets the ball in the in the Percy Harvin-esque end arounds.
Yeah, I've never
does
seen
something with it.
I've never seen a wide receiver 2, right? He's a wide receiver 2. He's the 24th. So in a 12-team league, he is a wide receiver 2 that finished the year with 473 receiving yards. That's
Yeah.
This is what I want people to do, because I'm taking a look at our league of record. Of the top, we can go all the way to 28. The top 28 wide receivers. We finished the year. There was one receiver who was not owned on a 5 bench spot.
And it was
team.
Tavon Austin.
Tavon Austin.
52 attempts.
Go look at
On
your
the ground.
league and see if somebody owns Tavon.
But when you put all the numbers together, he was a weapon. He had 9 touchdowns, total touchdowns, I believe. Yeah, 5 through the air, 4 on the ground.
Ridiculous.
So is he just annoying to own? Or is he somebody that we really just missed projecting him higher?
Look, he's a very talented athlete. He
Yeah.
is so fast. I believe that he's still catching punt returns.
Oh, he's a returner?
I think he is. If that's the case, and you're in one of those leagues, that clearly gives a bump up. But
24 years old.
going forward, if they're figuring out how to use him and get him involved, he's a guy that should be owned, should be drafted, and has potential to do this, because it's not just he got lucky. It was they worked him into the game, and he used his skill set to do well. The hard part with him is it's just so difficult to rely
He's
on
a gadget player.
starting him.
I'd love him as that. He's the guy this year that you could flex if you needed to.
Yeah.
Bye-week flex. I didn't want him as a 2.
Right. No way would I have played him as a 2. He had too many games. He had 6 games this year where he wasn't even a wide receiver 4. So you just couldn't rely on him and clicking that save button, right? I got my lineup, and I think I'm going Tavon Austin. He's in there, my flex. Clicking that save button is going to be very hard to do.
But because of that, is he going to be available very late in draft?
Sure. Am I drafting him? No.
The truth is, I don't think he's going to be available as late as he should, because people are going to look back and see he was a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, I probably won't be.
Good
having many
luck.
stocks.
All right, so 25 was Amari Cooper. 26 was Ted Ginn. 27 was Mike Evans. Obviously, we like Mike Evans higher than 27 next year. Randall Cobb, Ruben Randall, Travis Benjamin, Kamar Aiken, and the list goes on from there. But there somebody that you want to talk about before we close out?
The one guy I want to talk about, good friend of the show, Marty McBride, Martavis Bryant. His rookie year, he was a fantasy sensation. It was what he's doing. It is not sustainable. He cannot continue to do this. He played one more game this year because of the suspension. He had 43 targets, 43 more targets in one game, and 216 yards more than the last season. This speaks to me that Martavis Bryant is a huge part of their offense. He is a freak. I'm choosing to overlook the down games that he had, and I think that he is a guy that I want for sure on my team next year.
With Martavis Bryant, it comes down to maturity. You saw whether it was the suspension that started the year or the kind of inconsistency, the feedback from Big Ben, the challenge by Big Ben, he wasn't consistent in his effort and performance on the field. You saw his yards per catch go down from the astronomical 21 to 15. Part of that is because you saw him get involved in the screen game, like the old Demaryius Thomas style quick screens to the outside, and you saw him do incredible things with the ball in his hands. He is a weapon. It was a tumultuous year for all Steelers offensive players. Even though Brown put up the big numbers, you still had Big Ben injured. So I like Bryant. I don't know how much I like him yet.
I like him a good bit. And the last thing
Play more than 11 games, friend.
Yeah, I'll take that. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on, just is because we were getting research, my favorite stat that I uncovered going through these guys was Golden Tate. Golden Tate, this year compared to last year, was only down 9 receptions. 9 receptions. But over 500 yards less.
Oh, my
That is
goodness.
used in a different role. But that's
but
because
that's just a
Wow.
fun stat.
That is
nugget.
a fun stat.
yeah, I think it's just the difference of Calvin was on the field, so they weren't using him downfield versus the year before when
he was
Calvin
the yards
was out.
after catch man last year.
Yeah.
So that's it for today's show. I want to give you guys a bit of a taste of what's coming this offseason. We're going to go through so many different we'll have so many different shows talking about what Jason mentioned, the offseason coaching changes, the things that impact offenses. You've got all the free agent quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends that we'll talk about. We'll have our early sleepers, early breakouts. We'll have our early rankings. We'll have rookie overview and draft preview for the NFL draft coming up. And we'll have lots of episodes about tips and tricks for fantasy football. We like doing those kind of episodes where we're kind of summarizing a lot of the strategies that get people fantasy football titles in your league of records. So we'll have a lot more than that as well, but I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a taste of what's to come. Be sure to check out the website, thefantasyfootballers.com. If you want to help support the show, we're an independent podcast. You can check out jointhefoot.com. You guys have any parting words for our friends?
Nope, I got nothing fun today.
Tavon Austin
Sorry.
in the first round?
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't do
Tavon
it.
Austin.
That's the kind of hot tips we got.
Yeah, don't draft him.
Don't. Oh, come on.
Goodbye.
now. He's a nice guy.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.